It is my great privilege and pleasure to introduce us to Jon Vasu Seskevich, who will be leading us tonight, teaching us, leading us in some chant, meditation, and just sharing his wisdom with us. So please join me in welcoming Jon.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Jon, I'm going to read a little bit of a background from you, and then I'll ask a few questions, and then Jon will take it away from here. And then we'll close again at the very end with a little bit of time for Q&A as well. So, in 1998, Jon received the Friends of Nursing Excellence in Nursing Practice Award and the Alumnus of the Year Award from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill School of Nursing Alumni Association in 1997. These skills and tools have been crafted from Jon's clinical practice, NIH-funded research, and from 1975 to 2019, his friendship and mentorship with Ram Dass. He had more than 40,000 patient consults and taught hundreds of classes with staff. He was seen by hospital administration as someone who helped the rest of the staff do their jobs. The acute pain service would consult Jon with patients on ketamine post-op. 30 years ago, this time of year, Jon needed a letter from Ram Dass as a mentor in his nursing spiritual healing life. Ram Dass wrote back, "Dear Jon, what a delight to hear from you and to hear what a creative life you have designed for yourself. I'm really proud of you. If you need a quote from me as one of your previous mentors, you have the following. Jon Seskevich is clearly reflecting in his life's work the essence of the teachings that I was sharing with the class he took with me. That 15-month class, which happened only once in these many years, has served to deepen for all of us our commitment to living spirit and to service to others. I am proud to have been a part of it and happy to have had Jon in the class. I consider him a true guru brother. I hope this will serve you, Jon, and I really encourage you to keep going. I feel it too, with the beautiful things you're doing. In love, Ram Dass."
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, really touching. I can already feel the love and the compassion coming through in his letter to you and just in our brief interaction so far. I'm curious, Jon, you had mentioned that Ram Dass gave you the name Vasu. What does it mean, and what significance does it hold for you?
So I did that 15-month class with Ram Dass, and at the end he said if we wanted a spiritual name, he would give it to us and sent it in a letter. And so he said the name you asked for, Vasu, which means that part of Krishna who gives of himself to others. His being is the true wealth. And so the way I've taken that is that the capacity to give is there, it's important, but we don't have to give all the time. You know, it's the ability to give, the ability to love, which is important, and then being in the moment when it's called for, or maybe it's not called for, because sometimes people need to figure things out on their own, or it's a situation we can't necessarily help. So it really has worked out well in nursing to be able to kind of develop boundaries, you might say, how to say no and not feel guilty when no is the truth, you know, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Thank you for that. I'm curious about any overlap between your career and your spiritual path. Did one come before the other, or influence the other in any particular direction?
I read Be Here Now in January of 1972. It just had come out, and it was like a revelation to me. And just felt like I became like John Ramdas. I was hitchhiking a lot in those days, and I'd pull out the book and I'd show it to people, and it just meant a lot. In that book, the idea of service is kind of weaved through there, and I was, against the Vietnam War, protester, and had a high draft number, so I didn't go in the service, but I wanted to do something, so I became like a hospital orderly, working in a hospital, taking care of people's, day-to-day needs. And so I started that job January of 75 when I met Ram Dass in person in January 75 at his dad's house. And during the first session, there was, a crowd like this gathered, and he made a mention that we have to open our hearts to the suffering in the world. And then he kind of dropped it and changed the subject and went around to other topics. And so we had a question and answer, and I'm 19, I'm raising my hand and okay, Ram Dass, how do we open our hearts to the suffering in the world? And it's like he was gonna talk, but then he stopped and he just started meditating. And I was so nervous, my heart, but then it was slowing down. And then he said, your heart is already open. Now, to tell the truth, I don't remember what else he said, but for Ram Dass to tell me my heart was already open meant I was okay, which was a wonderful gift, initiation, really, to receive at that point. And so then, working in the hospital, and Ram Dass was talking about how death was just an ignored subject, and people weren't having opportunities to talk about it and deal with it, and there was so much denial in the healthcare system that we needed to work on this. And so that's where it kind of came together for me, because here it was, I working in the hospital and working with people around death and dying, end of life, and also just stress of illness. It was beautiful coming together.
Thank you. What's the most important lesson you've learned so far in your many years as a spiritual seeker?
Most important lesson. So in all my work around death and dying, I've kind of come up with a 3 ways to live simultaneously. So one is I could die or be quadriplegic tomorrow. Because I've seen that happen to people where, life is going down one road and then all of a sudden it's going down a different road they didn't ask for, they didn't want, but there they are. So I know that that's possible, so my will's made out and, all that kind of stuff I've tried to take care of. So that's one way I'm trying to live. The second way is that something takes me out in 2 or 3 years, like how COVID came and now 1 million people who didn't think in 2 years they'd be dead, we're dead. So I know that that's possible. Something could take me out that I have no idea about now. And the third way is I'm going to live a long time, so I don't want to blow the retirement account. Because if I've only got a year to live, we're going to have some fun this year. But I might live a lot longer, so we're going to, So Ram Dass has taught me to really be practical, as well as spiritual, and that there's a place where they really come together.
That's beautiful. I love that. I feel like this ties a little bit back into the topic that you're going to be talking about with us today around navigating uncertainty, which feels very timely, culturally speaking. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, how did you pick this topic for us today? And can you help us tie it back to the relevance of what's happening in the world right now and the cultural moment we find ourselves in, and how we can collectively think about navigating uncertainty?
So you're really pointing to what the whole presentation is going to be, and so that's there. But also you're getting my practical experience of seeing over 40,000 patients at Duke Hospital in the Bible Belt, regular people, and I've discovered what the biggest stress of all is. It's when a person is waiting and not knowing. I've had people say to me, John, even if it's cancer, at least I would know. The waiting is driving me nuts. I taught a class like this in a prison, and one of the guys at this point raises his hand and says, "You're right. I didn't care if they gave me 1 year or 10 years. I just wanted to know." Which it's the not knowing is the biggest stress. So the navigating uncertainty is about, we are going to have times in our life of not knowing. We've already had times in our life of not knowing. Well, what are the skillful ways of dealing with it? What are the ways to bring the best part of yourself to that situation? And that's what I'll be speaking and going into more.
Great. Well, perhaps we should let you get to it then.
Okay.
So without further ado, John's going to lead us through a chant, and then we'll get to learn more of his wisdom.
The first time I went to hear Ram Dass in '72, it was in Boston, and we're waiting outside. It was it was wintry. And then I'm sitting there and standing in line, and people break out into this chant. Listen, listen, listen to my heart's song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart's song. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. I will never forget you. And they were just singing it, and it was kind of miserable weather, but we just thought the spirit was like raised. And so I wanted to share that with you all tonight, that same chant. Now, if you were told to mouth the words when the singing started in grammar school, it's fine to sing here, okay? You can't make a mistake. It's not about musical ability or talent. It's about heart. And as Ram Dass says, music is a tremendous vehicle for opening the heart. So. This instrument is called a harmonium. Usually they're played sitting on the floor, but I like to sing standing up. So I'll start singing, and then when you get it, just join in. Listen, listen, listen to my heart's song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart's song. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. I will never forget you. I will never forsake. Very good. Listen, listen, listen to my heart's song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart's song. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. Listen, listen, listen to my heart's song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart's song. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. Listen, listen, listen to my heart's song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart's song. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. Listen, listen, listen to my heart's song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart's song. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. Listen, listen, listen to my heart's song. Listen, listen, listen. station came out to, they heard about my work at Duke, and they wanted to come and do like a little news story, and and they wanted to do a little news story, and so what I do is stress management. But when they talked to me before, they said, well, stress management, two people meditating or two people talking is not such a good video. Do you do anything else? I said, well, I do some massage. I do healing touch. I'm certified in that. And her eyes got real big. Oh, we'd like to do that. So it's called healing touch, but I just want to say it's really about the stress management.
Dealing with illness is never easy, especially when you're in the hospital for an extended period of time. But at Duke, they're helping patients cope by adding a step to traditional medicine called healing touch. It sounds simple, but for patients, the effects can be profound.
Bringing your awareness to your lower back.
The soothing sound of Jon Seskevich's voice has been helping patients relax for almost 10 years.
Everybody tells the patient, relax, don't worry. But nobody really tells them how. Become warm.
Jon works mainly with critical care patients, helping them take their mind off the pain. He uses several techniques like massage and guided relaxation.
And relax.
He helps the patient relax one body part at a time. Many times they drift off to sleep.
Beautiful, beautiful. I enjoyed it very much, and it just seems to get inside of you and relax the whole entire body.
Jon says there are many facets to healing touch. It can be expressed through more than just physical contact.
It can be from our voice, our eye contact, the love and care in our heart. I feel that that's all part of healing touch. How does that feel there?
Jon uses all of those things with 20-year-old Alan Aycock.
He made a world of difference for me in the hospital.
Alan has cystic fibrosis. He's the longest living pediatric double-lung transplant patient in the country. His doctor says he was introverted and having trouble coping with his illness until he got to know Jon.
He wasn't coming in here as another medical reference. He wasn't just somebody the doctors had written a consultation with. He was genuinely interested in me and helping me.
He's helped Alan tremendously.
Dr. Wigfall, Alan's doctor, says Jon has really connected with Alan, helping him through some rough times.
We all try to get to that point. We all strive for that kind of relationship. But I think Jon, with his style and his persona, is someone who can accomplish that much more rapidly.
Let your abdomen be soft.
Initially, Alan says he was skeptical of healing touch, but amazingly, Jon has helped him go through some procedures without pain medication.
Jon took me from being terrified to being relaxed and calm and saying, I can't do this, to saying, I can do this. And Jon will help me and it won't hurt. And those are big steps when you know what the procedure is and you know that it should hurt, but that it doesn't hurt.
Dr. Wigfall says relaxation is key for hospital patients because stress only prolongs recovery. He says without Jon, Alan would not have done as well.
No, it's just an absolute, it's a flat statement, but no.
If you could let your head be heavy.
Alan says he's gained trust in Jon, and he's got a gift like he's never seen.
I can think about the times before I met Jon and the times after, and it's like night and day.
Dr. Wigfall says stress and emotion play a big part in the immune system, and the reason healing touch is so effective is it allows the patient to control something like their breathing when they can't control their illness.
I know when you returned, you couldn't stop talking about Alan.
Yeah, I mean, great guy, 20-year-old, and his doctor. I mean, Jon is he's done some amazing things at that hospital for the patients.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Topics to be covered, we've already started, but we're going to go into how to deal with the experience of uncertainty, talking about mind-body medicine, stress management. I'm going to introduce mantra meditation, expert listening skills, exploring the potential for death to be a wise advisor. We're going to talk a little bit about spirituality and sharing about mentors in my life. So if everybody could, I know we've all had we've all had mentors and teachers and guides, maybe a person, maybe a book, maybe a family member. And just, I'd love for you to bring them to your heart now and just sending them a little energy of appreciation, thankfulness. You know, they're freely giving what they shared, their care maybe. And again, it could be a book, a program. And just that sending thanks and appreciation. And thank you all so much for doing that. So Ram Dass, who I'll talk a lot about tonight, his first book was called Be Here Now, and that's what most people associate with him. Well, after his stroke, and he lived the last 15 years of his life in Maui, there was a transformation. And that transformation was loving awareness. Ram Dass bringing loving awareness into the present moment. And so I feel that's the kind of essence really of his teaching. Be here now with loving awareness. And wherever we're doing that, we are with our souls, we are with our spirit, we are with our higher power. I've got an operational definition for the word healing, and that means improving quality of life and or improving physical functioning, which can be valuable at any point in life. There was a consult I got one day, and a woman who had cancer had metastasized, and could I go see her? And I went in and had a session. Now, I did not know she was a writer for the New York Times. I did not know she was writing a book on what would be the last year of her life. I did not know this book would be like the bestseller book on death and dying that year, but I get a call, text one morning, John, do you know you're in a New York Times bestseller? I goes, no, I'm not in a New York Times bestseller. And she said, well, she's talking about Nurse John at Duke. Well, I guess that's me. And so, with the technique I'm going to share with you all, I shared with her, and she was actually related to Ralph Waldo Emerson, like fourth generation, and had access to all of his diaries. And you know, she didn't share with me that she had panic attacks. Her panic attacks involved nightmares of swallowing batteries and waking up not being able to breathe, gagging and choking. She didn't tell me all that. But when I read in the book, after she left the hospital, went home, she, quote, remembered what Nurse John taught her. So woke up with that panic attack, went into the technique, and then had a mystical experience, which Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote this poem called The Bright Hour, and she kind of experienced it. So that's all in the book. So as I mentioned, this was in the last year of her life, but imagine, somebody being able to beat lifelong panic attacks in the last year of their life is going to have a better quality of life those months. And so, yes. So I've moved to Ojai now from North Carolina, our pink moment there. So my journey, I kind of started with Duke, but let me go back to the beginning. I was taking LSD and was walking with a friend in the woods, like 3/4 of a mile from my house. And this friend had just moved there from Berkeley, and he had been living with Ram Dass. And so he had Ram Dass's address. So I was having one of those rare bad trips, maybe not so rare, bad trip. And I was just perseverating negativity, and then all of a sudden I saw my girlfriend walking down the path, and again, we're 3/4 of a mile in the woods. I wasn't expecting her. She lived in Vermont, and there she was, and I said to my friend, is she real? And yes, she's real. It's her. And that instant I went from pain, suffering to love, happiness, contentment, just like that. So I wrote Ram Dass a letter, and he wrote me back. And because it's in cursive, I'm going to read it all for everybody. Jon, connections to the earth, your body, your heart, and the hearts of those around you, in such a graceful route to God. So I'm going to include all you in this. The LSD trip just shows you more stuff of personality to let go of. Richard's right, so simple. If paranoid, love others, it works. Good to be sharing this journey with you. Blessings to you, your lady, and Richard. Shanti Ram Dass. So I've treasured that letter. A few years later, just after that 15-month class, wanting to stay connected with Ram Dass as much as I could, I took on a project. He had a prison ashram project, helping people use their time in jail to go to God. You know, so many, like people getting busted for a joint for 5 years of jail, and they're writing Ram Dass, what can I do? And so Ram Dass created this, he called it the Prison Ashram Project. And I took on the Pen Pal program and coordinated that. So matching, I would like come to a talk like this, and I would ask people if they wanted to be a pen pal with someone in prison. And I would gather, and then people through the foundation, they put out books, and they would write me in jail looking for a pen pal, and I would match them. And so for the first newsletter, I asked Ram Dass to write a little note, and I'll go ahead and read this too. On the journey of births and rebirths, each of us sooner or later must reach toward the light. At that moment, it matters not whether your body be well or ill, free or in bondage. What matters is the purity of heart with which you seek transformation of who you were into what you can become. To all of you who participate in the postal satsang, I send my honor, for by your active participation, you're reaching toward the light this very birth. Somewhere in each of us is a place of clarity, spaciousness, peace, and love. In that place we are together and have never been apart. May blessings surround you and your sadhana. Love, Ram Dass. And so I'm thinking in these letters, you're getting little hints of this navigating uncertainty. Now, who are we really? What is our real purpose on life? Ram Dass is pointing to something bigger than a group sitting here, that there's something greater. And that essence teaching is the idea that who we really are souls, not our roles in life. And with his first mushroom experience in '63, he had that, where just all the different roles, his, being a pilot, being a professor, being a lover, just they all fell away, during that psychedelic experience. This picture was taken in India. I accompanied Ram Dass. He spent a month in India in 2004, and I accompanied him as part of that healthcare team. So let's get into navigating some uncertainty here. Here's the first one. We don't have to have all the answers. Now, this could be liberating right there. We don't have to have all the answers. Why do I say this? Because science doesn't have all the answers. What is the reason for suffering? Why do people die? Where can I find hope? What is the value of my life? All these big, big questions, and science doesn't have answers. So I don't have to know everything all the time. In fact, the biggest stress is that waiting and not knowing. When we're in that uncertainty, that is the stress. Where does our mind want to go to? The future? What if thoughts? You know what I'm talking about when you're in that limbo? What if? Or the past? If only, that kind of, we miss out on the being here now when we're uncertain. Tom Petty was right. The waiting is the hardest part. So in this, working at Duke, I have to have science behind everything, and it's there. The research on stress management goes back to the 1950s and 60s. And here's the key. Stress can simply arise from change in life. Whenever we're going through changes, good or bad, there can be stress. Some people thrive on stress. Firefighters, military, police officers, ambulance drivers, intensive care nurses. High stress every day, they love it, and I'll say thank goodness. If I'm ever in a car accident, I want that team to thrive on stress. I want them to. Now, other people, no, they don't like change at all. They'd rather have things be the same. So that type of person might have one or two changes, and they're having an anxiety attack. Everybody's different. Why? Stress is physical. It's psycho-neuro-immunological endocrine systems firing, signaling the body danger. And over time, this can cause wear and tear on a person, whether you thrive on it or not. And, can anybody think of some physical responses to stress, what you might notice or see? Hives, the skin problems, definitely. Insomnia. Trouble sleeping, or not able to sleep. That individual makeup. Yes, what else? Muscle tension, and then that can aggravate what? Pain. So it can bring on pain problems. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Pain, all kinds of pain. That sense of, afraid of going outside, just kind of like, or needing really a lot of control. The stress comes up and you're wanting more control, and that's so hard because stress takes control away from us. So we've talked about mental, physical. How about spiritual? Can stress affect a person spiritually? What might you see or notice? Like a deadening of the spiritual feeling, dulling of the spiritual feeling, yes. Doubt. Maybe long-held beliefs are challenged, yes. Fear. Avoidance of spirituality in general. Yes, or reactivity to it, going the other direction. Second guessing. Doubt, yes. Loss of hope. Loss of meaning, loss of purpose in life. I would call those spiritual manifestations of stress. So what happens when we're dealing with not knowing? What's a skillful way of dealing with it? And I've tried to make notes for it here. You want to get the information you can. The American Cancer Society says knowledge is power. So the idea, get information, find out what you do know, what you can know, and then what you don't know. Problem solving can take place. When you feel like you've done what you can, the idea, recognize the not knowing in the present moment. That is the stress. The mind thoughts, the future, it takes you out of the present where you can control it. So the idea, come to the present, don't go on all these thought trips that are just aching for you to go on. Then using mindfulness to peel emotional layers. It could be fear. You could have fear come up around uncertainty. Be with the fear. Deal with the fear. You could have, I hate it when I don't know things. Deal with the hate. So what you do as you deal with these emotions on top of it, you peel them away and you get more energy to deal with what you need to deal with. Ram Dass used this statement so many times. The only work we have to do is on ourselves. So that sense of when we are not knowing, as we work on, and this is hard, to take care of ourselves. It's easier to give to other people, and it's harder to let people give to us. You know what I mean? The sense easier to give, harder to receive. So that sense of when we're not knowing, that is an excellent time to work on ourselves, to bring in resources to help us. And in the old days, it was like if you reach out for help, you were seen as weak. For me, if it's easy to help other people and harder to let people help us, what takes more strength? Letting people help us. Receiving takes more strength. So in terms of mind-body techniques, we've got a bunch of them. And as a teacher, I know I could teach 3 to you, 3 different ones to you. They don't do nothing for you. You don't like the first 3, but you love these 3. Well, in working in the hospital with so many different people, I came up with one technique that I could teach everybody, ranging from, a pediatric patient to a general of the Green Berets. And it really builds on what Ram Dass taught. He taught that the spiritual journey is about quieting the mind and opening the heart. That's what the spiritual journey is about. And so this mantra meditation, excellent way to quiet the mind, excellent way to begin to open up the heart. This picture, I'm sitting up in the upper left-hand corner, we had that 15-month class with Ram Dass, and Peter Simon, Carly Simon's brother, was in the class, and a photographer, and took this picture, and I found it, and there it was. I've written a chapter in this book for physicians on mantra meditation. So where we're coming from, why do we want to work with a mantra? It's about thoughts. Thoughts can add to the physiological stress response. Just think of the worry thoughts. What if? And then my muscles are getting tense. I'm not sleeping. All of these problems we identified are coming from the thoughts added on to the stress. So the idea that it's frequently used, you're told to relax when all hell is breaking loose, but people don't tell you how. So I want to teach how to relax and how to decrease worry. So in 1977, they were wondering about the science of this meditation. So they hitched me up to a EEG and asked me to do the practice for 15 minutes. And we got the paper, and I trimmed it down, but the first A is like normal day to day. And you see where I start the beginning, the soft belly breathing, where it starts to slow down and they start to spread apart. And B is what's called alpha brainwave frequency, which is dream state, which is creativity state, which is deeply physiologically relaxed state. And then finally in C, we have theta brainwave frequencies, which you see in deep sleep, like an hour and a half into sleep. So I showed this tracing to a doctor at Duke who looks at them all the time, and he says, I didn't tell him it was me, or I didn't tell him what I was doing. I just said, what do you see? And he said, this person's been sleeping for 90 minutes. the whole thing was 15 minutes. I was awake the whole time. I could have talked, but my mind and body was getting the deep rest comparable to 90 minutes of sleep. So the idea, taking care of ourselves then can give us energy to deal with whatever's coming down the pike. So I've kind of brought this to 3 simple steps, and what I'd like to do is explain the steps. And for this whole talk, if anybody has a question or anything's not clear, go ahead and ask me now. But I'd like to introduce the technique, same one that I use with the patients on ketamine, I use with Alan, all through the hospital, 3 steps, and then we'll do a 10-minute practice together. So, soft belly breathing. I know everybody talks about the breathing and relaxation, but let's be real practical. Ever since you've sat down here, you've been breathing 16 to 24 times every minute, and probably didn't feel very many of them. Breathing is happening. People say, breathe, take a deep breath. I've been breathing my whole life. I'm 72. It's a lot of breaths I've had. But if you put one hand on your belly and then aim your breath without work or effort towards the hand and the belly, you'll notice a rise of the belly with the breathing in and a fall of the belly with the breathing out. No work or effort. Every cell in our body wants us to breathe. So as we breathe, the belly rises and falls. Can people feel that? This breathing is telling your body safe. So right now, intentionally, you are signaling your body safe. You could be just ready to swear out some driver who just did something and your stress goes up. Instead, I'm taking care of me. I feel okay. Soft belly breathing. Everybody good with step 1? And that's as long as you have to do it. It could just be feel 1, 2, 3 breaths rise, you're done. Or you could do it for a minute, whatever you want. Part 2, I am so irritated. Here it is, we're in the hospital, and they're wheeling this lady to intensive care unit in her hospital bed, and the nurse is yelling, relax, relax, relax. She's going to intensive care. How to relax. Here you go. Feel the support of the chair, and I would say right now, the support of the chair, the support of the floor, and let the chair, let the floor support you. The idea, I'm standing, I'm holding me. But if I sit in the chair, at Duke, you could see people like this. When are they coming in here? What's that test going to show? When am I getting out of here? And what's happened? The blood pressure, the pain, the sleep. Instead, part 2, I feel the chair, let the chair hold me. I put my feet on the floor, I let the floor support. Warm, heavy, soften, ease right through the whole body. Everybody good with part 2? Any questions on that? Good with part 2? Great. Part 3. Silently to yourself, repeating a short positive thought. The mantra. I've looked up what the word mantra actually means. It means something that protects the mind. And when you think about worry, rumination, stress, politics, something that protects the mind is a good thing. So, short positive thought. What I did was I developed a spiritual assessment with this technique, and I'll share it with you all. Is religion or spirituality important to you? For some people it is, and some it isn't. How about you? So I've asked that question over 40,000 times. I get 4 answers. One answer, yes. Another answer, I don't go to church, but I believe in God. A third answer, I'm not sure about God, but I think there's something spiritual. I like being in nature. Fourth answer, no. So based on that answer, I would suggest a mantra, or I would suggest you could choose a mantra. So there I am at the Bible Belt. At the beginning of my job, I asked them, is there a line from the Bible that you like? 8 of the first 10 people said, the Lord is my shepherd. So that became the Duke mantra. The Lord is my shepherd. Later in my career, what became more popular was God is with me for the Christian or theistic patient. Now, working at Duke, I experienced, the man who fought for us in Afghanistan, Muslim who was having major back surgery. I offered him the phrase, La ilaha illallah, there is no God but God. Somebody Jewish, I suggest the phrase, Shema Israel, or the word shalom. Native American lady, she appreciated Wakantanka, which means, oh great spirit. Are you seeing where I go? The Buddhist patient, Om Mani Padme Hum. The Wiccan patient, blessed be. The only time I had a challenge with this was the Church of Satan. I had 2 people say they belonged to the Church of Satan. And I just didn't want to go with Satan is my shepherd. So at Duke, I mentioned I did a lot of classes. I did classes for chaplains on revitalizing the caregiver. And so listen to 6 months apart, 2 different groups of chaplains. I told them this story, and I said, what would you suggest for the Church of Satan person as a mantra? And 2 different chaplains gave me the same answer. Go to hell. Okay. I have to say, I offered them easy does it. That was the phrase I suggested, easy does it. Now, if someone wasn't religious, you heard Alan, what was his? I can do this. That became his mantra to protect. He learned how to let go of unwanted thoughts like, I can't do this, and substituted his mantra, I can do this. Easy does it could be another. So everybody's got the idea. If you're not spiritual, it could just be a positive thought. And if you are spiritual, I would encourage a more spiritually oriented mantra. So you can choose your own. Everybody good with that? Question? Okay, wonderful. I share here, some mantras that people have used. It's good you choose it before we begin so you don't spend the whole 10 minutes trying to figure it out. So I'll lead it for 10 minutes, and if you don't want to participate, just kind of sit back and take it easy for 10 minutes. So begin by coming to a comfortable position and let your eyes gently close if you'd like. And begin to notice your soft belly, soft breathing. Right now, there is no place to go, nothing that you have to do. Just simply being here. Being here with the experience of your breath, and being here with a sense of relaxation. One of the ways of feeling relaxation is to notice the support of the chair, the floor, and for now, allowing the chair, allowing the floor to support you. So if you'd like, you can notice the muscles of your feet and legs, letting the muscles of your feet and legs become warm and heavy. Comfortable feeling of relaxation beginning with your feet and legs and continuing to your hips and your back. Letting the muscles of your hips and back become warm and heavy. If you'd like, you can notice the muscles of your chest and abdomen, letting the muscles of your chest and abdomen soften and relax, letting your breathing be free and easy. Breathing free and easy. If you'd like, you can notice the muscles of your arms and hands, softening, relaxing, all through your arms and hands. Soothing feeling of relaxation continues through your neck and shoulders, head and face. Softening, relaxing, all through your neck and shoulders, head and face. Very good. As we finish this gentle relaxing through the body, silently to yourself, repeating your mantra. Easy Does It is an example. Silently to yourself again and again. And again and again. Each time you notice other thoughts, kindly, gently letting go of the thought, returning back to your relaxation words, your mantra. thoughts of the future, of the past, letting go again and again, kindly and gently, returning to the mantra. Letting yourself again notice your breathing. Feeling the air coming in and feeling the air going out. We'll go ahead and we'll end this period of meditation by letting yourself take a couple soft breaths. And you can wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes. And when you're ready, you can open up your eyes. Even if you're not totally ready, opening up your eyes. Okay, how did that go? Any questions or comments? Or feeling more relaxed. Great. Okay. So, did you notice other thoughts? Today, you learned a cognitive coping strategy. You've learned how to let go of unwanted, unneeded thoughts. That letting go without judging, without criticizing, without analyzing, simply letting go of the thought, returning back to the mantra. It can be like a muscle. When we did research with this, we got $1 million grant for 3 years to study this mantra meditation and high blood pressure. We found a lot of people thought they had high blood pressure and didn't, so we also included a stress management study with this. And we found that doing this practice 15 minutes once a day, within 2 weeks, people found a dramatic decrease of stress in their life. We use 4 different stress scales to measure. So a couple strategies for building a daily practice. One is doing it at the same time every day. Then tomorrow you don't have to figure out what time you're going to do it. You just do it at that time. And you do it at the same time every day. The second approach is associating the practice with a behavior. So one I like to talk about is when I worked, I might get home from work one day at 5, another day at 7, another day at 6:30, but the action of going home from work triggered, that's the time I did the meditation. So it could be, for someone who's a housewife, it could be like when the kids take a nap or, before my lunch or, just associating the practice with a behavior. And some people will do it during the week, maybe with a time, and on the weekend with a behavior. So just a couple ideas. And using the same phrase for a period of time develops a strength and a power to it. So, That's the journal it's in. And basically the slides just showed that, the 15 minutes once a day, people achieved those positive results. And the ones who did it twice a day had an even greater improvement. So you don't have to pay $1,400 to TM and get a mantra. You've got your mantra tonight. Walking meditation is another approach I brought with this, using the steps. So if I was doing it in this room, it literally could be walking from one side to the other, turn around, stop, and go back. And then with each step, it could be a phrase like, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Ram, or God is with me. The idea of using the step with the phrase. And then when all those thoughts come up, which they will, you're letting go. And if you did this exercise twice a day for 15 minutes, you've still got 23 hours and 30 minutes to think about whatever you want to, okay? I'm not asking a lot here. But I am asking a lot because I know it's easier. If I said, well, help your friend out for 15 minutes, you'd be all over it. But here's something that can help you. Do it yourself. Well, I don't know. I'm too busy right now. So, it is a barrier. But there was this patient. She had cancer metastasized to her spine and went paralyzed with the radiation and had this searing nerve pain. So she was like really upset at night, and the nurses, the next morning, the medical team came around and they walked in the door and she said, I want Dr. Kevorkian. That was a suicide doctor back in the day. I want Dr. Kevorkian. First they all laughed, and they saw that she was serious. And then she said it again, I want Dr. Kevorkian. And so they went outside and, they got a psych consult for depression and suicidal ideation, but the discharge planner knew me and asked if I could be consulted. So instead of Dr. Kevorkian, she got Jon Seskevich. And she says the first thing, I don't have any stress. It was just a rough night. I said, oh, that's wonderful you didn't have any stress. I look at stress a little differently. I talked about stress as change. She could relate to that stress as change. And so, long story short, during the session, she talked about going to Central America and help building churches, kind of like a Habitat for Humanity, only they built churches, and how wonderful it made her feel, and how the people had a fiesta for them, and it was so great. And so I said to her, if you can go home now and let your family take care of you, how will that make your family feel? She said, good. I said, yes, good. But you have the harder job to let them. But let your family love you. Let your family give to you. So she was able to go home a couple days later with hospice and family support. So there's many different approaches to psychological, emotional support. And with this slide, I identify some. It could be like finding a good friend that you can talk to who's willing to listen. It could be counseling or psychotherapy. It could be a support group. Maybe even some of the groups you have here can be support for people dealing with changes in their lives. Journaling, spiritual counseling, the rituals of letting go and holding on. I know there was this a yearly event at Duke they did where for parents who were grieving a lost child, and they let go of balloons to them. This was before, I guess, we've learned that that's not such a skillful thing to do, but letting go of balloons. And the person who coordinated the event said, oh, it's a way to help the parents let go. But when I talked to the parents said, it's a way for us to stay connected. I'm sending them the balloon. So this idea of rituals and practices can be very, very important and valuable for us. Listening skills. So I am going to wrap up with this one because this is the PhD of listening skills. I call it listening without taking on the pain. Because if you ever followed me for a day at Duke, I'm seeing 7 to 8 people. I'm seeing this man is going to get his horrible leg pain ended tomorrow with an amputation. And this next person just found out they've got a brain tumor. And this next person's had a heart attack and not going to be able to work. And this person and this person. You can imagine if I took on the pain of each one of those people, I'm not going to be able to come into work tomorrow. Does that make sense? So in my career, I as well as working at the hospitals, I would arrange workshops and conferences. People familiar with Stephen Levine? He was one of the founders of the field of death and dying, a Buddhist meditator, incredible writer, author. Well, I was arranging a workshop for him in Atlanta for him and his wife. And I'm in Atlanta at the airport, and I go see him, and I had posters all on the East Coast, Stephen Andrea Levine, and it's just Stephen who gets off the plane, and I said, Stephen, where's Andrea? And he said, she just found out she's got lupus and wasn't able to make it. And I go, oh. And he gets right in my face, and he goes, wrong answer. It's new moment. Lupus. Cancer. And so as I'm standing there hurting, I ask myself this question. Am I helping Andrea at all in New Mexico by hurting now? What's the answer? No. I'm hurting and I'm not helping Andrea. Am I helping Stephen by hurting right now? No, he's having to help his friend Jon deal with that shock. I know Andrea. She's had cancer twice and beat it, and now she's got lupus. Wrong answer. New moment. And my mind was racing at this point. Pity versus compassion. Pity, you poor thing. Thank God it's not me. Compassion is having the courage to touch pain with love, with presence, with caring. We don't need to fix it. We don't need to change it. We be with it. So the way that I've developed that in my practice, I don't say, new moment. I'm talking with the person and, they're going to have their leg amputated tomorrow. New moment. No, I don't do that. What I do is I nod my head and I say, okay, tell me more. Or that's rough. Or some supportive listening skill. But I say, okay, nod my head as a signal to me that this moment is just enough. That, for the spiritual person, if God is real, God is here. This moment in loving awareness, be here now with loving awareness, okay. And so I take that inside myself and I'm with that person and, there might be times when there's tears. Yes, that's appropriate. There's times when you're really empathetic with the person. But the challenge is, when I walk out of the room, am I still hurting? Because then I'm walking into another room. So it's letting go in the minute. And that's where the meditation practice becomes so valuable. And the navigating uncertainty, because as well as teaching the meditation, I'm helping to problem solve. I'm, getting the doctor questions that the patient has. I'm actively involved, but at the same time I know that sometimes we just don't know. So, would this be a kind of a time for questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's give Jon another round of applause. So wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jon.
Thank you.
And if anybody has a question, we have a microphone for you. Feel free to raise your hand. We can pass them around.
When I saw your hands doing the touching, it looked a little bit like Reiki. Were you ever influenced by Reiki?
Well, I was, as a nurse, I was trained in Healing Touch, which was a whole certification program for nurses. Where Reiki, it's for just anybody. Anybody can do Reiki. So it's very similar. Just Healing Touch is an umbrella term, and it might cover 20 different techniques. Right. Yeah, but it's energy healing. But because science says relaxation is beneficial, science says touch is beneficial, science says a caring person, the placebo effect, a caring person is beneficial, then if you believe in the spiritual, you're getting the spiritual benefit as well. Yes. Yes. Here it comes.
Do you believe there's a spiritual significance to pain, disease, illness, and suffering, as in some sort of metaphysical root driving people towards?
It's like people don't like not to know, and so that can be a question that they have. And I'm not sure if you can really get an answer. You can get somebody's opinion and idea. So, I'm thinking of life as a spiritual journey. All of it is. So if it's an illness, that's part of the spiritual journey. And, I believe in karma in a sense that, I'm a soul born into this body, and I'm bringing karmas to work out in this life. And maybe because I'm an American, I've got to deal with America karma too, so it can get that big. So that's how I would tend to look at it, as opposed to, you've got breast cancer because of some, you didn't love, I don't know. Yeah, just everything can be spiritual in our life. Everything can be spiritualized.
I know that in my own life, my own illnesses have been the greatest activation for a lot of my spiritual gifts. And so I see that in a lot of people.
Yes.
And I think a large portion of healing is allowing and guiding people to find meaning in this to promote spiritual growth. So
yeah, especially for that spiritual person, yes. Yeah, as much responsibility as you want to take is what you have then. I have a hard time with, I gave myself cancer. I have a hard time just because I've seen such guilt around that. And, if I could give myself cancer, I would manifest a flower in my hand. And it hasn't happened yet. But again, I understand as people, we want to know, and so that search for meaning. Yeah.
I was curious to hear you say a little bit more about what you think the role of the mantra is, because as we were doing that practice, I found that very helpful to give the mind something to do, as opposed to a more emptiness-focused meditation. But I was kind of just curious to hear you say a little bit more about that.
I'm because I'm working in the hospital with people. They don't have a lot of energy. Does that make sense? And so this technique is designed to give you energy, as opposed to, because if I'm trying to block out every thought for emptiness, there's an effort involved. Whereas I'm always breathing, so I just breathe a certain way. I'm always in my body. I just hold it a certain way, and I'm always thinking. Always thinking. I did a 3-month silent retreat from, meditating from 6 in the morning till 10 at night, sit, walk, 3 months. I'm sitting there. Maybe 2 months into it, my mind is pretty still. All of a sudden, a vision. Away goes trouble down the drain with Drano. This whole commercial just comes up and flashes in my mind, and it just taught me that the mind never shuts up. And so the goal of shutting my mind up, I'm never going to win. But quiet the mind down, you experienced it. Yes.
Where did you go to that?
It was Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts. When I did the 3 months, Joseph Goldstein, Jack Kornfield, and Sharon Salzberg were the teachers. So they were just getting started, just out of Asia practically. Yeah.
Insight, what was that?
Meditation Society, IMS is the acronym. It's in Barre, Barre, Massachusetts. And they still do the 3-month retreats. Meditation.
What year was that?
1977. And then my first was, I did a 10-day in 76. In 3 months.
I'm sorry, I didn't get here early enough. What's your name again?
Jon Seskevich. I've got cards to make that easy. Yeah, it's got my website on it too.
Hey, John.
Yes.
So I have a little bit of a problem when I'm listening to someone with pain or mental pain, that if I don't try to feel that pain with them to a certain extent, that I can't be effective in relating to them. Does that make any sense?
Oh, a chaplain brought up the same thing. I did those revitalizing the caregiver for chaplains, and one of them brought up the same issue. Just in that sense of, the heart-to-heart talk I'm sharing, it doesn't really help the other person for me to hurt. So the idea, I would experiment just loving the person as opposed to hurting or taking it on. And you'll be surprised what release they have, because they finally got someone who'll listen to them, share, and get it out. Yeah. Anything else? Yes.
I just have a question to sort of piggyback off of that one. What would you do? What would be your advice for someone who has had relationships in the past? They have some kind of PTSD over people who say they care, and I'm coming at it from a angle of wanting to care, but they're not ready to receive it. They're not ready. Right.
Yeah, you can just keep loving them.
Right.
And love in the most pure sense, Mayor Baba mentioned that love is not coercible. It's more like a being than a doing. So that you give them the space, because some people with PTSD have trust issues that are valid, and learning to trust is part of their healing. And it could be like a test of trust that they're doing with you. So that idea, just keep loving them as best you can, and your patience, and that will create a space for them to let go or open up when they're ready.
Thank you.
Yes.
You mentioned about karma and travail with disease. What about having a relationship with the dis-ease?
In a sense of like visualizing it and then having a dialogue with it?
Yep, I mean that.
Yeah, NLP, there's this NLP technique where I work with a person with a brain tumor who is having incredible pain, and the idea was visualize the pain on a boat, and now you're letting the boat drift off to sea. And so having a relationship using the imagination, we're able to get some relief from that.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have one last question for you, Jon.
Okay.
Were you always this kind and loving, or has this been a trained practice over many years for you?
I guess, yeah, I can still be an asshole. I mean, it's just that karma thing, It's like, I've discovered a new bodhisattva practice. If you really want to be a bodhisattva, you're going to start off with traffic and driving. And anybody who does anything to you, you're going to loving kindness them. And so that's my edge with LA traffic, Usually they're swearing at me probably, but yeah.
Great. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for being here today.
Yeah,
what a wonderful
everybody.
evening.
Thank you. Thank you.